Hello, and welcome to the Red Bank Humanists podcast. Each month, Red Bank Humanists hosts a public forum featuring speakers and topics covering a wide range of subjects of special interest to the humanist community. To learn more, including information about our monthly book club and our Drinking Post-Theologically events, visit redbankhumanists.org and follow us on Twitter at Red Bank Humanists.
Good morning, everyone. So today our program is a panel discussion on homelessness, and as Red Bank Humanists, we have a wide range of topics in our forums, and one of the sort of recurring themes is issues of social concern, issues of how we make the world a better place, and how we serve the least among us. And one of the most sort of obvious signs or symptoms of that need is the homeless, people who don't have a place to call their own, who don't have a warm bed at night. And so we've put together this panel to discuss that issue and what organizations in our community are already doing to combat homelessness. And I have today with me representatives of three local organizations. I have Steve Heisman from Habcore. He's the executive director of Habcore, and as you may know, we've had a long association with helping Habcore over the years. From Tent City in Lakewood, I have Minister Steve Brigham, and he's been Steve's been the driving force behind Tent City and making it a livable and as reasonable as possible place for the people he serves there for over a dozen years down in Lakewood. And he'll be telling us about his experiences and those of the people that he serves there. And I also have Ileana Hernandez. She's with Family Promise of Monmouth County, and she's a caseworker for them, and is going to tell us about what they're doing, particularly for families who have lost their homes. And to start, I'm just going to ask each one of them to tell us a little bit more about their organization and their involvement and the people that they serve.
Thank you. Good morning. Thanks for having me. Habcore provides permanent housing for people who are homeless or in danger of becoming homeless. We do this in two different fashions. We have boarding homes. We have one in Red Bank, which serves 21, and one in Asbury Park that serves 30. We provide a lot more structure than your traditional boarding home. We have a lot of expectations, a lot of rules for them to follow so that we can ensure harmony among 20, 30 strangers living under one roof. We collaborate with other social service agencies like CPC Behavioral Health Care and the Mental Health Association to help link to other services that we might not provide. We also have independent living apartments, and we have about 50 units scattered about Monmouth County and some in Ocean County. And those are subsidized. They pay about 30% of their income for rent and utilities, and they get provided case management services once a week.
Okay. I'm now going to hand it over to Ileana Hernandez from Family Promise.
Good morning. I'm case manager with Family Promise. We are an organization in Monmouth County. We are the only homeless shelter for families in Monmouth County. We provide shelter to anywhere between usually around 6 to 8 families, depending on the size of each family. We provide them with a day center during the day for where they can congregate, where we provide them with computers and information to look for apartments and jobs. And similar to Habcore, we have rules they have to follow for saving of income towards eventually leaving our program and entering into their own homes or apartments. They stay with us for 90 days. During the evening hours, they then reside in congregations throughout Monmouth County. Each week they spend that week with one church, and then when that week is over, the following Sunday they go to another church, and they do this for the entire 90 days which they're with us. And also once a week they do receive case management services, and we try to help them as much as we possibly can and try to keep the family unit together.
Good morning, Minister Stephen Brigham, Lakewood Outreach, the coordinator of Tent City in Lakewood. Tent City is a stopgap measure. It's just meeting chronic homeless people's needs where they're at. I've never solicited anyone to come into Tent City. Anybody who's come into Tent City has come there and either come into Tent City or given me a call and asked if it was a possibility for them. And so what it is it's just people living in either shanties, small shanties, or tents in Tent City. There's about 100 individuals in Tent City right now. So it's a living demonstration of the need for housing, affordable housing, or a niche. Again, we're just showing Ocean County in particular that there is a need for housing for the homeless. There is no shelter in Ocean County, and so we're that living demonstration, showing the powers that be that there is a need. And so what Tent City does for the individuals, it gives them a sense of community, a sense of ownership, a sense of belonging that they wouldn't have in the broader community typically. So they have their own tent. Some of them have a little picket fence around their tent, and again, nobody is telling them when to get up or go to bed. Nobody tells them when to eat the food, what to eat. They're their own person in Tent City. They have a little slice of the American pie in Tent City, and again, it's just a stopgap measure until some organization or the powers that be formulate that needed shelter for the people, the homeless people of Ocean County. Thank you.
Thank you, all three. So you've each told us, the basics of what you do, but I want you to just want to ask you each, and first to Steve Heisman from Habcore, tell us a little bit more about the demographics of the people that you serve and the problems that cause their homelessness. Oh, and the reason I want to ask this question in this way is because each of you serve a sort of a different segment of the homeless population who are often there for different reasons.
As far as our population, our mission is just to serve the most vulnerable, anybody who's homeless or danger of homelessness. We don't discriminate. If they demonstrate a need, then we do what we can to house them, and that goes for the properties that we own. So that's the 2 boarding homes. We have a small property here in Red Bank, one in Keansburg, and one down in Beechwood. So those we try to help everybody that we can. Those are reserved for individuals, and they have a pretty large range of issues. I mean, they could be mental health issues, they could be physical disabilities, substance abuse issues, and generally, while there's no requirement, they do lend themselves to that. As far as most of the apartment units that we don't own, which are scattered around, they are HUD subsidized, and therefore, in order to live in those, somebody needs to meet HUD's definition of homeless and HUD's definition of having a disability. So those are for people who definitely have documented mental illness or physical disabilities. We are expanding that program. We should be having another 40 or so units to serve about 50, 60 people in the coming year. Those are going to be reserved for homeless families, some for veterans, and other individuals with special needs. But now, luckily, the definition of homeless and the definition of disability has been expanding, so we're able to help a lot more different types of people. And now they're actually working toward considering homeless as a special need, so you don't need an actual disability to go into these units.
Thank you. I'd like to hand the mic over to Minister Steve first.
Okay, yeah, the population of Tent City, again, is there's no criteria. The only criteria for Tent City is that you have to be homeless. And so anybody that walks into Tent City and says that they don't have a place to stay, I'll give them a chance. We set up a tent, and the only rules that I tell them we have in Tent City is the basic rule is you have to respect your neighbor and respect your community. Those are the only two rules of Tent City, and so it's kind of broad. We're in the business of trying to help people, not turn people away the best we can. So we set up a tent for anybody who comes into Tent City and that needs it. So our population are as broad as the homeless community. We've got, of course, all the traditional reasons that people are homeless: mental illness, addictions. But now we've got a new population, the economically impacted. We've got a woman who worked in New York City in the garment district for 35 years. The last 5 years that she was working there, she was making over $100,000. What happened is they outsourced her whole industry to cheap labor overseas. And so her and her husband of 42 years called me up from New York, from Queens, and said, Minister Steve, we saw you on the internet. We don't have a place to stay. We don't want to go into the social systems of New York City. Can we move into Tent City? And they've been there close to 3 years now, living in Tent City. So we've got artists there. We've got an artist that just came from California. While the economy was good, he was doing well, and what happened is he made a dodge for Tent City. He went on the internet looking for places that he thought he could survive in out there. He saw Tent City. He's headed off east from California with his automobile. It conked out in Georgia, and he got a bus from Georgia up to Tent City. And a very positive individual. Again, the economy went bad, and so again, the spectrum of people in Tent City completely run the gamut. And there's people of all different backgrounds there in Tent City.
Yeah. So, Minister Steve, the one thing that I did want to point up, though, is you mentioned to me that you don't have children. It's not really a place for families because apparently the Division of Youth and Family Services in New Jersey considers residents in Tent City as essentially, on the face of it, evidence of neglect of children, and they will be removed. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah. No. Exactly. There's been, I can remember at least 5 incidences where people have called me with children having no place to stay, and they said, Minister Steve, we've exhausted our possibilities. Can we move into Tent City? And I says, let me get on the phone and do what I can. And, not that, I think Tent City could handle children. It's, again, for the parents. We're afraid that the government agencies might just come in and remove the children, and then it would be up to the parents to try to fight for them back. And so up to now, I've made phone calls, and we've been able to find that housing that was needed for those families. So up to now, we haven't had any children in Tent City.
Okay, now I'd like to turn to Ileana to give us a sense of what can be done for families, particularly who find themselves homeless.
Well, as I said, Family Promise is the only family-oriented homeless shelter in Monmouth County. We believe in keeping the family unit together and trying very hard not to separate parents and children. Our individuals are either run the gamut of both parents with their children. We have single mothers, single fathers. Our only requirement is that you do have a child when you enter into our program, and obviously that you are in the need of a home. As far as why they're homeless, as the Reverend said, it runs the gamut. We have people who just, an event has happened in their lives and has caused them to be economically unable to maintain a home any longer. And it's not that they're unemployed. We have several people who are employed within our establishment. We have people who have cars. We have people who have families outside of their nuclear family, but for one reason or another, they no longer can sustain their homes, be it just the economic times we're having. They're living on paycheck to paycheck. They are making minimum wage. They are divorced. The ex isn't paying his child support, or there's just no support for them. Their families have given up on them. So they come to us and hope that we are able to help them, and we do our best to make sure that the family stays together and that we can help them so that they can make a plan so that after their tenure with us, which is for 90 days, that they can move forward and find a place to stay and be successful.
And before you give up the microphone, Ileana, tell us a little bit more about how your program works and how you partner with congregations throughout Monmouth County.
Our organization has several different congregations within the County of Monmouth that we rotate through during the weeks throughout the 52 weeks throughout the year. Every Sunday evening, a new church takes the place of the old. We have a van that, if you wish, you can be transported by van, or you can drive yourself to that church for that evening. The church is run by volunteers and a coordinator, and those volunteers will cook dinner and feed the families, and also entertain the children, help the families any way they can, and provide them with somewhere to sleep that evening. The next morning, be it by their own transportation or by the van that we provide, they are returned to the day center that we have in Middletown, New Jersey, where they have access to a kitchen, they have access to television, they have access to computers, where they can spend their time either looking for apartments, looking for jobs, and doing that sort of thing. And then the progression starts all over again, and they go back to the church that evening for dinner, and we do it 7 days a week until the next church takes over. And there is an overnight coordinator who stays at the church overnight with the guests, so they're not alone in the church. At 10 p.m., the church is locked down. All the guests have to be in the church by 10 p.m., and that's where they spend the evening, where they sleep, where they congregate, where they talk about their day, and hopefully where they find help, and we hope that it works.
Thank you. In a similar note, Steve Heisman, can you tell me a little bit about sort of a day in the life of one of the people that you serve at Habcore? And you can tell us both about the boarding house experience, predominantly about the boarding house experience, because that's the more supervised experience. But as you will. Sure.
In the morning, they're served breakfast. They get all 3 meals served to them, and they have snacks available throughout the day. So they'll get up and they'll have breakfast, and then they're expected to go do whatever they have that's scheduled that's constructive in their lives. We expect that they're doing something constructive with their time, whether it's getting a job, going to school, volunteering, or attending some kind of a program or workshop that helps them gain insight into their illness. So they're expected to do that, and then when they come home, they kind of do whatever recreational activities. They have dinner. Sometimes we have other groups and workshops for them to do. We have a residential life committee that's made up of all volunteers that provides them with all sorts of opportunities, whether they're recreational and having a barbecue, going to the beach, going to a ball game, going to a play, or if it's more skill-based, where it's computer training or helping them with resumes, teaching them yoga or how to maintain better diets. And then they'll have snack, and then they'll retire to their till the next day.
Thank you. One of the things that's that I'm sure many in the audience are wondering is about how the Superstorm Sandy has impacted the populations that each of you serve. It certainly destroyed a lot of homes and disrupted a lot of people's lives. So I'd like to give you each a chance to tell us a little bit more about how the storm has affected things. And I'd like to start with Reverend Steve.
Yeah, we went through Sandy in Tent City. About half of the individuals found temporary shelters in local churches, but half the population, which is it was about 80 at the time of the storm, so about 40 stayed in the camp and 40 left for the night. And again, they see their tent there as their home, and they wanted to be there. Everybody was given the opportunity and the option to leave, but like I say, half the population opted to stay. And what happened during the storm, the trees of Tent City helped us more than they hurt us. One tree did fall on a tent, but those individuals were gone for the night. They would have been hurt quite badly if they had been there, because the tree fell on right square on their tent. But everybody that was in Tent City fared well. Nobody was hurt. A few tents did go down. After the storm, we had our chapel that we have in Tent City loaded with people whose tent was disabled during the storm. But we worked fast to get everybody back in their own individual tent. So overall, probably Sandy for us was a benefit in that we weren't hurt too bad, but the overflow of the help across the nation coming down to the shore, we got some of that overflow in Tent City coming down, which was much needed and much appreciated. Getting ready for the upcoming winter, blankets were coming down and sleeping bags were coming down. So again, we fared well during, we're only 8 miles Cedar Bridge dead ends into the Atlantic Ocean, and most of the severe damage was done right there in the Manaloking area, right at the end of Cedar Bridge Avenue, 8 miles from Tent City. But only 8 miles from the shore, we fared pretty well.
And how about in the aftermath? Did you get an influx of people who had lost their homes in the storm, or did you not see more people showing up on your doorstep going,
Yeah, I'd have to say that I think FEMA did a pretty good job of housing people after the storm. We didn't see an influx. We had a couple of individuals. One fellow said his electricity was off and he could stay warmer in Tent City around a campfire than he could in his apartment. So he came down to Tent City to build a little campfire to stay warm. But yeah, he didn't lose his apartment, but he lost his electricity, and so we still had heat in Tent City.
Okay. Now I'm going to turn to Steve Heisman from Habcore. I know you said that you have had some damage to some of the homes, and I also wanted to see also whether that also added to your the demand for services.
Yes, we were pretty lucky also in that nobody was hurt. As far as the boarding homes, they were without power for about 10 days or so, as was everybody else. So they made do and banded together, and everything worked out great. However, we did have some issues with our homes in Keansburg. We had about 13 people lose their homes. So we needed to relocate them, and for the ones that we owned, we needed to rehabilitate them. Which, after a long 6 months, we just did finish in May. So everybody is finally back in their home. Contractors did a great job. They're nicer than they used to be, so they're excited about that. But everybody is finally back in, and everybody is doing great. As far as the waiting list, what we've seen from Sandy is we started compiling a waiting list for this new apartment program, and there's been some delays from the government in actually issuing the funding to get it going. So while I thought hopefully in the fall we were going to be able to get started, we still haven't gotten started to this point. So we had and anticipate for opening at the end of last year. We interviewed about a dozen individuals and families and accepted them into the program. And then when we saw the delays, we kind of stopped at that point. So we're continuing to build the waiting list, but at this point, because of the the way that rental properties are kind of few and far between at the moment post Sandy, we've kind of stopped that process. We're going to work on when we finally get the word from the government that we can start. We'll house those, dozen individuals and families, and then, start going down the list again. But the list did, grow quite significantly after Sandy.
Thank you. And now, Ileana, you want to tell us about how Superstorm Sandy has affected Family Promise of Monmouth County?
As far as the shelter guests who were with us at the time of the storm, we made sure that they were out of the day center and into the church who was housing them for that week. However, eventually, as things happened, they ended up at the Monmouth University as part of the evacuees. So our families, 4 in total at the time, ended up staying at the Monmouth University until they were able to return back to our system when it was deemed safe to do that. As a result of the storm, however, we noticed that there was a great need to help those who had been affected by it and who had either had their homes damaged or had been displaced by the storm. So we, like many of the other organizations in the county, applied to the Robin Hood Foundation for grant money, were granted those funds, and created what we now call the New Beginnings program within Family Promise. It is a program within the organization that assists specifically Sandy victims, specifically families who are victims of Sandy. The requirements are that you are a Monmouth County resident and that you have a child who is under the age of 18 and are willing to work with a case manager, which I am one of. We provide services to the family. We take an intake from them. We do an assessment of their needs, and then we work with them to help them to put them in touch with different organizations and different individuals and different funding sources so that they may repair their homes or find new homes to live in, or just have food or groceries or provide for their children as need may be. And we continue that relationship, the individual with the case manager, for as long as the individual feels they necessarily need the assistance. And so far, it's been of a great success. I myself presently have a caseload of 30 client families.
And in the New Beginnings program, they're not going from congregation to congregation weekly. Say a little bit more about that.
No, the families who are in the New Beginnings program are families who contacted us via, we have flyers and word of mouth and different organizations who have recommended us to them. These are individuals who apply for FEMA and have FEMA registration numbers. I have clients who at one point or time were being housed in the hotels by FEMA. There are some who are housed in Fort Monmouth presently, or who are staying with family and friends, or who just are finding their way week to week. But what we do is we meet with them to provide them with case management services and to help them find an apartment or a house as soon as possible, or to help them repair their home as soon as possible. And we do, besides providing the case management service, we will help them with their security deposit once that they do find a location. And we do assist them in dealing with the effects of dealing with the bureaucracy of social services and organizations such as that.
And for the children in these families, if they've been displaced, or for the ones who are in the program where they're going from congregation to congregation around the county, how does schooling work for them? They are obviously not going to change schools every week, so how do they manage that?
We have an agreement where we find out what schools the children are attending, and during the school year, we contact those organizations and make arrangements, and the school bus does come and pick them up at our center. So we have school buses from all over the county picking up children, because the children attend the schools they were last registered at prior to the homelessness. So that way they don't have to get used to new teachers, new friends. We try to not to disrupt their lives as much as possible.
Thank you. So now that we've heard about how each of your organizations work to some degree, I want to talk a little bit about the relationship that you have with the community, because I think that also differs among your organizations. Often it's difficult because of the sort of not in my backyard attitude of many residents in New Jersey and around the country, I suppose, not wanting to have a homeless shelter or some sort of transition housing in their neighborhood. So let me start first with Steve Heisman from Habcore. tell us a little bit about your relations with the communities in which you have your locations.
The communities where we have our facilities, they say they like us. They say they appreciate what we do, that we're an asset to the community. However, opening up anything new, you start to run into the NIMBY. We had an issue in Red Bank probably about 12 years ago where we thought we had a win-win situation with a local church that had a parsonage that they were not using anymore, and we thought we could put 5 people in it and house them, and Red Bank wasn't really crazy about that. More recently, we had an issue down in Beechwood in Ocean County, because I'm really not about banging my head against the wall. I want to try and figure out, what we can do to, I understand each municipality has needs. So they had a rooming house that was a source of problems for them. So we came in there and were offering to rehabilitate it into apartments. And so it was going to decrease the density, decrease the intensity of use, and bring everything up to code and have a nice new building. And they didn't want that either. And I still, to this day, don't really understand why. People are just afraid of the unknown. And I had, a neighbor actually say to me, or say actually in front of everybody when we had the hearings at the planning board, that if you gave him a choice between living next to somebody who was a drug dealer or bipolar, he would take the drug dealer any day. So at that point, I don't know how to deal with that logic, and we kept fighting through court, and finally, through our third appearance in Superior Court, we finally won, and we should be opening that up hopefully by the end of the year. But we're always looking for opportunities to expand. That's why this new apartment program, which is HUD funded, is good, because it's just integrated within the community. It's just wherever there are units to rent, they could be next door to me, they could be next door to you, and there's no requirement except just that it's a rentable unit.
All right, and I'd also want to hear from Minister Steve about the travails of Tent City with Lakewood. Give us a sense of how that's been going, and then I'll probably ask you a follow-up.
Yeah. Do we have all night? Yeah, but it's been an ongoing situation with Lakewood, and in the county also.
Just to start off, the land on which Tent City sits, who owns that?
Okay. Well, it's I like to call it public property. Somebody else might call it township property, but both fit. And so the homeless of Ocean County have been on public properties for years and years, decades, and under the radar. And so, with myself trying to organize the homeless and trying to get them situated where their basic needs were met on a regular basis. So, we've had an ongoing battle with Lakewood. Lakewood sued us about 4 years ago to get us off the land, and it just so happened that there was a fellow by the name of Jeff Wild, who was coming down with his synagogue from North Jersey, Barnard Temple in Franklin Lakes, and they had seen an article in the New York Times about about the homeless of Ocean County and me helping them. So they came down with their synagogue, and Jeff was one of the coalition that came down from the synagogue. And we had a little rapport going on, and he was coming down with his people. And at the time of the lawsuit, at the time that Lakewood was suing, I mentioned to Jeff, I said, Jeff, Lakewood is suing me, And Jeff said, you know what? I'm going to see what I can do to help you. And he said, I'm going to take a short trip to Florida, and I'll be back. And when I come back, I'll do what I can. He jumped on it when he came back. His firm, Lowenstein and Sondler, has spent over $1.5 million representing Tent City to this date. Without Jeff's help and his firm's help, we would not be there, point blank. So again, extremely thankful to Jeff and to his firm, and he's an ongoing help constantly doing what he can. He started his own coalition for the homeless statewide and is addressing the homeless needs across the state. And so with Lakewood, of course, is an extremely interesting town. Again, some of the things that are going on there I don't quite approve of, so I'm addressing those issues too at the same time. And it kind of works together well in that I can bring light to the broader issues using Tent City also as some leverage and showing the need for a fair housing and true affordable housing in Lakewood, in Ocean County also. So again, we're still in a battle. We just came up with the consent order in March, and again, the township brought us to court to try to evict us to nowhere in March, and Jeff, for the second time, set up an office in Tent City. We put up a tent just for Jeff and his paralegals and his other lawyers that he brought down with him. They spent a whole day in Tent City taking statements from people in Tent City and just formulating their case. And again, back Lakewood up once again. And so again, right now Lakewood has said they're going to give everybody in Tent City a year's worth of housing. As part of the consent order, part of the agreement, and we're not to let Tent City grow, and of course they're to manage that. That's not on Minister Steve. That's on the township to manage that growth or the lack of growth. And so as of yet, since March, we haven't seen one person get housing through the township, but we're hopeful.
So are the residents of Tent City, are they in some sense looking forward to this transition that's been promised, if it can happen, or do some of them really prefer to just stay in this community that they've developed, and how is it for them? Yeah,
everybody is apprehensive only because they don't know what it looks like. They don't know what the housing is going to look like. So they're afraid of the unknown. And so again, people are relatively comfortable in Tent City for the most part, and we've got one fellow who's a libertarian. He's just moved into the camp in, I believe it was early March. He's a humanist. He's an atheist, born in Moscow, and moved to America when he was 10. And I tell you, he's one of my biggest supporters in Tent City. He records every one of my sermons, puts them on the internet. He's He's a computer programmer. He did that for 17 years. Got himself burnt out doing that. And when he came down to Tent City, he was loading trucks in the industrial park. An extremely intelligent man, who is again one of my biggest assets right now in Tent City. He spends all day long in a little office that we set up for him on the computer, building the new website for Tent City and the ongoing Destiny's Bridge. So, so an extremely great asset. So he's also a libertarian and believes in homesteading public lands. So he's not going to take, he says right off the bat, I'm not taking that year's worth of housing, doesn't believe in government subsidies. And so it runs the gamut again, depending on the individual.
So now I'm going to ask maybe more sort of philosophical question, but you can take it as you will. But to each of you, and I'll start with Ileana, what do you think can be done to prevent homelessness even before people come into your orbit? Just having seen the population that you work with, having come to know them and their issues, are there things that society could do, whether it's government or the charitable sector or just us as individuals? I
think first and foremost, we need to view the homeless as individuals and not as an issue, but as a person who has issues that are causing them to be in this situation. So we need to view them as a person, and what would we do for each individual, and not label them because they don't have a home at the moment. Also, I think that the government needs to look at and decide truly what is a livable wage. to say that someone can feed themselves and their families and live in a place for $8 an hour, I'm sorry, is a little ridiculous in my mind. We need to really truly look at what our guidelines are for poverty, what our guidelines are in deciding what is a wage that will allow you to sustain yourself in this world. And not just because the economy is good or bad. We need to decide that we're going to pay you this so that you can live no matter how things are economically in this country. Also, I think we need, as people, need to be more human. We need to respect each other. We need to look at each other as people, and we need to say, okay, I'm going to help my fellow person. Because more often than not, as was already said here, which I don't agree with the logic either, how can you choose to live next door to a drug dealer? That's much more easy for you than living next door to someone who may have a mental illness. And we need to take those labels off. Not every homeless person has a mental illness. It's just they're down on their luck. They're having a bad time. Not every homeless person caused their homelessness. We have to stop blaming and start helping. And once we do that, I think that it will get better. I don't ever believe the problem will completely go away because it's been around for a really long time, and I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. That said, I think we do need to start changing people's minds about what and who is homeless.
Thank you very much. And now turn it to Steve Heisman.
As far as the working poor aspect, I think Eliana said it quite well. I don't know that I have too much to add to that, so I can then speak to our other population that we deal with, which is the special needs population. And if you ask me if I have philosophy, it's not a popular one, but I do feel like there needs to be a continuum and a range of different settings. It shouldn't be the hospital or your very own apartment off by yourself. There needs to be homes like boarding homes. Boarding homes are very unpopular, and for a good reason. Most of them are not run very well. They're owner-operated. There is no subsidy for them, and generally the population that lives there has a very, very small income of $700-800 a month. And then therefore, in order for those homes to survive, they cut back on supervision, they cut back on, meals and services provided, and then you get some, resulting behaviors from that. They don't keep the building up, and it becomes a big problem, and that's why they have a bad name. However, if these people were afforded the proper level of supervision and the proper amount of services, they could live, and then they could graduate into a different level. So once they've, let's say they've come out of a hospital or they've come out from under the boardwalk or wherever it is they may be, they can go to a residential health care facility or a boarding home and then graduate from there into an apartment. And unfortunately, we seem to be losing the middle parts of that.
Thank you. And Mr. Steve, would you like to also weigh in on that?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. As far as how do we get out of the situation? How do we eliminate homelessness? Again, we didn't have any homeless Native Americans, when the Europeans came over. They had their little home. It might not have been a castle. It might not have been a house on the hill, but they had what they called home. And I think that's what we've got to create for people is those people, a lot of people in Tent City, most of the people in Tent City, their tent is their home. And some of the homeless in Tent City don't want to be called homeless. And he says, I'm not homeless. My tent is my home. And again, I think, of course, the cost of living now in this area, Ocean Monmouth County, it's about $21 plus. It's higher than that. That's the low end. Is $21 an hour for a single individual to afford a one-bedroom apartment, a used automobile, and the basic necessities of life. $21 an hour. That's what he has to earn in Ocean Monmouth County. And so again, if we raise the minimum wage to 21, of course, the employer would have to, increase his costs of services, and things would snowball. I think, we take a lesson from the Native Americans, and we just create small, affordable housing. And again, that's going to mean a tremendous amount to the individual. It's going to give him a sense of worth, a sense of community, a sense of belonging, a sense that he belongs in the society, as long as he has a place to call his own. Let's just bring down the cost of housing, which is our the main cost of our standard of living, our cost of living, is a place to live. If we can just bring down the cost of housing. Again, a small house, 12 by 16 maybe, with a wood stove, with solar panels on top, sustainable as much as possible, going back to nature. We can do it. Our forefathers did it in log cabins. We can improve on the log cabin a little bit. We can create housing for everybody. I believe it beyond a shadow of a doubt. If the Native Americans can figure it out, I believe we can figure it out. And so I think we can do it. We can create housing for everybody.
Okay, and now I just want to have one final round about what people in the audience who are sort of thinking, this is I understand the issue. I do want to be able to help in some way. They, maybe people have different ways they want to help. But what do you think, us as individuals or Red Bank Humanists as an organization, how can we, best help you help these people or help in other ways, both to forestall people becoming homeless and to help them when they have sort of fallen through the cracks and have become homeless. And I'll start with Ileana.
Probably events like this, getting out the word, getting out knowledge, getting out information would be a great way to help these individuals, because pride is still a big thing. People don't want to feel like they're being charity cases or being taken care of. They want to be able to stand up on their own feet and be independent. As Minister Steve said, they just want someplace they can call home. So if you can get out that information and you can share what you've heard today with others so that more people are aware. And as always, we appreciate any we appreciate any donations or any assistance you would like to give the organization, be it manpower, financial, products, however you see fit. But in the end, we just want everyone to know that, yes, the homeless exist, but they're not to be feared, they're not to be shunned, they're not to be ignored, and they need our help, and any help that you can give them would greatly be appreciated.
Thank you. Well, again, there's a multitude of ways people can assist. And again, we've, from this group, have received a great deal of help in Tent City. Rena Amata, Pat Barr. We also have, others in this room right now that have come down to Tent City and brought things that were needed for Tent City. Right now, we're living mostly on donations as we promote this this cause and this living demonstration of a need. We want to move on to more sustainable. A lot of the fellows in Tent City are finding jobs. A lot of them are finding jobs with the Sandy repair, the repair of houses down the street. So we've got a lot of people that are leaving Tent City and supplying for as much of their needs as they can on their own. But again, there's still a large need for people helping out. On a broader scale or a bigger picture, we've got a documentary that somebody has made of Tent City. It's called Destiny's Bridge, and he took that from a concept that I had of moving forward with the idea of Tent City, of the homeless living in a community and being self-sustaining, self-supporting. And what it is, it's a micro town. Everybody, you have the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. Everybody has a role in the community to support the community. So it's a micro town. And everybody learns their skill within the community, and they use that skill to move out to the broader community. They take that skill that they learned in Destiny's Bridge in this community, and they take that skill out into the broader community, and then they can sustain themselves in the broader community. So somebody has come down to Tent City, spent the last year coming down every week, sometimes twice a week, and filming and documenting Tent City. And so he's finished his documentary. He's a professional filmmaker, and he's looking to Red Bank to premiere it. I think it's the Twin Rivers Theater he's looking at, but he's going to debut it either July or August. And so I think it's going to be a great tool to get the awareness of homelessness out to the community. I've seen the documentary. He did a fantastic job. It includes a lot of different issues in that documentary, and I think it keeps you captivated through the whole 90 minutes of the documentary. And so I think it's going to be a great tool. Once it does come out, we can use that to bring it to places and use it as a discussion piece to bring out the issues of homelessness and trying to get a solution to the issue.
And Steve?
I'd say really, education and support. Just spreading the word out there that there are people who need our help. Regardless if you don't see them laying by the train station anymore. They're still out there, and anything that we can do to help them and providing support to the organizations. Going out to your municipality's meetings if they're in there trying to find a way to help out those people. And that goes along with spreading the word and for financial support from individuals, because really the way that most organizations expand now is through government money. And when you take the government's money, you have to follow their rules and serve the kind of people that they have in their heads that are needed. And usually the organizations have a much better feel for that, because they're the ones who are dealing with them every day. And the more support they have without restrictions, that they can serve a wider range of people.
Thank you all. I want to now open the floor to questions from the audience.
I'd like to bring up an issue that hasn't really been touched on, that I'm sure is of interest to many people, and that is of crime. And I'd like to ask each of the people involved, the panelists, how prevalent is the crime with the people you deal with? How do you deal with it? And what is your relationship with the local police?
Any of you want to take that? Okay.
We do background checks on our individuals who are applying to us. So, if they have some kind of aggressive crime, then we're probably not the place for them. So if they, any kind of, aggressive, assault or any kind of, theft, robbery, anything like that, then we're probably not the place for them. We have, like I said, a lot of rules and expectations in our programs, and if someone does something to break the law, we follow through with natural and logical consequences. We call the police, we make out reports, and then we work on finding them another place. I think we've had we've spoken to the police departments in the towns that we're in, and we feel like we have a good relationship with them.
Mr. Steve, to what extent have you had difficulties there?
Okay, and again, anybody that comes to Tent City and says that they're homeless, we give them a chance to move into Tent City, give them a chance to prove themselves or disprove themselves that they can live in the community and do the right thing by their neighbor. And again, as far as people that might have a tendencies to do things, steal things because of their addiction, and again, there's people with addictions in tent cities. They've burned all their other bridges. They've got no other options. They'd be living under the boardwalk or under a bridge somewhere, eating out of a garbage can. Tent City is the last the last step to the chronic homeless, where you would be totally on your own and fending for yourself and trying to survive. And so again, we let them into we let everybody into Tent City, and then if somebody is stealing because of their addiction, and of course heroin is the strongest addiction that I've seen out there, and we're going to have a problem with that, and we've had a problem with that in Tent City. But what we'll do is to try to combat that is we just did what they did back in the Puritan days. We say if somebody is found out that he's been stealing, we say, this is counterproductive to the society that you live in. You live in a society here, and you've got to get along. And we're quite lenient as much as possible. And I've had in the past had to remove people from Tent City. In fact, one time that I was removing somebody from Tent City, the police came in, and the person that I was removing said that I was removing them because they were telling on other drug addicts. And Minister Steve didn't like them telling on the other drug addicts, and it was totally false. And he said that just so that they could try to flip the script. And so I was arrested twice. Once in the middle of the night. I was arrested then when the person came up with a lie. The police officers didn't ask anybody else in the camp what went on. They didn't ask me what went on. The person that was, making the allegations was a chronic heroin addict with mental illness, and they bought into their story and, again, arrested me 2 days in a row just because they thought they might have something on Minister Steve. So, again, I haven't kicked out too many people, removed too many people since then. I've only got so much money for bail. So again, so what happened just yesterday? We bring it up. We had a caravan of people came in from a local group, People to People. It's a kids organization, local kids organization, and their parents came down and their support people came down, and they brought all kinds of food, canned goods, toiletries, and so we were there. We were showing the children around the camp, and I got, after everything was said and done, we went out, everybody got in their vehicles, and I was backing them out onto Cedar Bridge, and we said our goodbyes. And then I heard from some of the homeless that one of the homeless people had gone into one of the vehicles. And and it wasn't just anybody's vehicle. It was the Perlemeyers. I don't know if anybody knows the name, but they own almost all of the shop rights down in that direction. And so a very wealthy, prominent, who could, with the things that they throw away in one evening at ShopRite could probably feed Tent City for 1 week. So again, what we did is I went to the man personally, and I said, this is counterproductive. We don't know if he took anything out of the car. I don't believe he did take anything, but he was looking, and that's bad enough, And so I called the police, asked the police to come down. The police says, well, without somebody signing a complaint that something was missing, we can't do anything. I said, well, somebody saw him open the door. Can't you do something because it wasn't his vehicle? He opened that person's door, and he says, no, I'm sorry, we can't do anything. So I can only go so far. But what I did is he got public shame in Tent City. I said, what you're doing is if this gets out to the community, to the people who support us like that, we're going to cut off our nose to spite our face. We're going to cut off what supports Tent City. And again, this fellow has not shown his face in the middle of the camp since. So he's got public shame that he is hurting the whole community by his actions, by his selfish actions. He's hurting the whole community. So again, that's about the only power that I have in Tent City. This fellow, again, if we did remove him, he would be under, doing his habit and stealing from somebody else. So what we're trying to do is get that shelter in Ocean County that has those supportive services that will address those issues of addiction and mental illness the best we can and move forward. So that's how we're handling that in Tent City.
I guess this is for the minister. I live in Lakewood in one of the senior communities, and there's a lot of senior communities. We opened the door for Sandy folks, but I don't see any. There's a lot of open houses. I mean, people have abandoned or have died or whatever. A lot of houses, but is there a communication between the senior communities in Lakewood?
Well, some of the seniors in Lakewood are some of our best supporters. And again, they're helping us out as best we can. But I think to move into some of the houses that are in the senior developments, I believe the age restriction would probably keep us out. And then the cost of keeping up somebody paying that rent, whatever it would be in those senior houses, again, would probably be above what anybody is bringing in Tent City. And again, but that is a good point. I mean, there's one community that's getting low-income housing built for them on a broad and a wide basis, and that's the senior community. They've got a strong voting bloc. The politicians are courting that voting bloc, and there is a substantial amount of affordable housing within the senior community. And we need that spread around to the rest of the communities. The younger generations need the new families that are starting out need to be able to tap into low-income housing like the seniors are being able to avail themselves of. So again, yeah, there is a lot of communication. A lot of the housing in Lakewood is higher end, Four Seasons and things like that. That's, of course, out of the question. But the lower end is still usually too expensive for most of the homeless of Tent City.
Hi, good morning. I have two questions. I was wondering if there are other tent cities in other states. And the other thing I was wondering is I work at Home Depot, and it's an absolute crime, the stuff that I see thrown down the chute. Do any businesses offer donations, or is there a way that I could talk to my manager and say, can Habcore be a donation site for stuff that is thrown out? It's an absolute crime, the stuff that I see thrown out.
Okay. As far as tent cities across the nation, yeah, there's been, without a doubt, an increase in tent cities since the downturn of the economy in '08. And but the tent cities are getting the same reaction that we've been getting. The townships have been trying to figure out a way to shut them down, sweep them under the rug, chase them to another town, or do whatever they can to eliminate them, within their perimeters, their boundaries. But yeah, again, there's I think more companies now after Sandy and just getting educated about what's going on with our economy. It seems to me at least that more companies and more organizations, more businesses are willing to donate things instead of just throwing them down the chute. So to me, I've seen a little bit more of a turn toward compassion from the business sector as far as donating.
There are definitely some local businesses which have been very good to us. Just to throw out an example is like Sickles and Delicious Orchards. They will. We have volunteers once a week who'll go and pick up fresh produce and that sort of thing that they'll donate back to us. As far as the larger corporations like Home Depot, there's a lot of things that you got to get through. I mean, we could certainly. I mean, with the houses that we own. We could certainly benefit. I mean, we have a credit account at Home Depot, and we're using it quite often, whether it's, it could be from, doorknobs to toilets to, landscaping. So we would definitely welcome any kind of help along those lines.
A question, please. To help spread the word, whether it's among within our community, or whether it's just to people that we know that we kind of work or play, who would people contact to donate either manpower or money for each of you?
Yeah, give them phone numbers and
I know that we have a website that you can go on to. It's Family Promise of Monmouth County. And, I'm sorry? Family Promise of Monmouth County. I did bring some information with me. It's in the back that you can, contact us via phone and discuss any donations you'd like to make. We're more than willing to talk to you and to accept as much help as you're willing to offer.
And anyone, there is some information at the welcome table, but feel free to follow up with those of us that you know within Red Bank Humanists, and the word should eventually get back to me or to Trudy, and we can get you that contact information fairly easily. So don't feel like you have to scribble down the website in real time. We'll make that available.
And then also, we have our community outreach group, so if anyone's interested in organizing something, like a volunteer day or a collection or something, let us know, and we can try and get like group support for it. So.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you to you, the three of you, and to your organizations. It's just wonderful what you do. I know I speak for everybody here. You've touched a humanist heart in us, and that being said, now to something completely different, to the Minister Steve. It's off the wall kind of a question. What about the potable water and the sanitation? Doesn't that come under either the county or even the state regulations, and don't you have to deal with that in such a way?
Yeah, of course, being homeless, everybody has to use the restroom facilities every once in a while. So wherever a homeless person is going to be, he's going to do whatever he has to do to do that. But what we've got in Tent City is we've got, at first we had outhouses. And we just did what our forefathers did, is dug a hole in the ground and put a box over the top of it with a toilet seat, and we used that until it was full. And then we moved it over 5 feet and dug another hole and did the same thing. But now we've got we've evolved a little bit into porta-johns. We've got some organization who is funding us with porta-johns. We've got 4 of them in Tent City, and the people come and they service them once a week, the people that own that, that run that company. And then, but as far as drinking water goes, we've tapped into groundwater. Southern Jersey has one of the largest aquifers in the world of fresh water. And it's a beautiful resource, and it's relatively easy to tap into. And what we did is we just took a 1.25 inch pipe and a sludge hammer and a well point, and we just drove it into the ground, about. Well, we did a test. I did a test personally. I had a test done. I didn't do the test myself, but I had it done by a local water company, and they said we wouldn't recommend that you drink that. So we don't drink it. We tapped in for our washing needs. Tent City could not exist without that well. I mean, they tried to find me. They tried to find me for putting in wood stoves to keep the homeless warm. They wanted to find me $1.5 million a month for all the things that I did, without a permit in Lakewood. They wanted to find me $1.5 million a month. They finally went back on that. But what I'm doing, if they were taking care of the homeless, if Ocean County was taking care of the homeless, Minister Steve wouldn't be there in the woods, and the homeless wouldn't be there in the woods. So again, I'm a stopgap measure, doing what I can just because of mercy and compassion, and trying to fill in a gap that otherwise would these people would be in the woods somewhere on their own without a system, without an organized system. So I tapped in 25 feet into groundwater. We don't drink that water, and that well will only be there as long as Tent City's there. And again, we're trying to go to another level, and then we won't need, that well. So we're just doing whatever it takes to survive right now. That's what it is. These people, the homeless of Tent City would be going down to Atlantic City Rescue Mission, which is overcrowded. They're sleeping on the chapel floor on mats. They're sleeping on the dining room floor on mats. Again, they're kicked out in the morning to wander the streets all day, only to come back to a mass dinner, to mass showers, mass sleeping quarters, to mass breakfast, to wander the streets again in the morning. So again, we need to, what they've got in Tent City is community. They've got some emotional needs that are being met there because of that community. They've got physical needs being met, food, shelter, clothing. And so again, it's an organized system to benefit the homeless that otherwise would be, in a worse situation.
Okay. What's happened to Fort Monmouth as a housing possibility for the homeless?
Well, as of right now, FEMA has been housing victims of Sandy in Fort Monmouth. But to my understanding, that is only occurring for 18 months as of the date of the storm. So if you were placed in there by FEMA, you are only allowed to stay there for those 18 months. So if you're placed there now, you're only allowed to stay the amount of time left on the 18 months. You don't get an 18 months from the beginning. So that said, but right now, that's what they're housing. And I alone, I can tell you that half my caseload are families who are living on Fort Monmouth at the moment. They are living rent-free. They aren't paying any bills. That's being taken care of. However, once they leave, it'll be back to tons and tons and tons of empty houses and empty apartment buildings, because there's officers' quarters that were homes, and then the soldiers who stayed in the apartments in enlisted men's quarters. And no one has really made a decision on what's going to happen with that in the future. I think the big thing is not in my backyard where Fort Monmouth is concerned. The people who live close to the base just don't want those people living there. And I guess I find it really ironic, because when I go to visit my clients there, it just so happens that they have a golf course right on the base. And the golf course is immaculately kept. And every time I've gone so far in the spring, there have been tons and tons of lovely cars and lovely individuals getting out of their cars to go play golf on the golf course where they're collecting monies from, but yet they can't use those empty homes to house the people who really need them.
I applaud your efforts. I am hopeless personally. I feel the government as a whole has repudiated its own preamble as far as those who are needy, sick, homeless, etc. But I also indict organized religion in general. In particular, I should hope, Minister Steve, that you have the backing of your own congregation or denomination, whatever that may be. I hope that's the case. But my own experience has been, in the reading I've done, in the observations I've made informally and as an amateur, I feel that the church in general, and the temple, if you will, has totally repudiated its founding principles in regard to the poor, homeless, and sick.
Again, the church that I'm ordained under is Lakewood Outreach Ministry Church. Ordained under that. It's a small African-American church. The pastor is a Korean War vet. His father was white, his mother was black. He was raised in Louisiana under great prejudice. And the reason that he took me in under his wing or under his organization was because he saw that I was addressing the poor of the community. He was raised up extremely poor in Louisiana in the bayous. And so he's got an amazing heart for the poor and for the needy. And again, it's this congregation of about maybe 8 people that he's blind himself from diabetes, but he goes out and he preaches. And we do have a sermon every evening in Tent City, and then on Sunday we've got a service. But again, most of these services are geared around social issues. And again, how religion would, affect those religious, those secular issues, those social issues. So, again, but a good percentage of our donations do come from local churches that are organized coming down to Tent City.
My name's Bill. I personally know Steve. I've been trying to help build housing, and I was told I was promoting homelessness by trying to help them, which is a crazy logic. But Steve, you came up with the idea of public shame, and I've been involved in planning boards where their intent is to keep affordable housing out of town. So maybe there is some way to publicly shame certain people that are causing a lot of this. But
I think Ileana mentioned, and I'm going to mention about Ocean County because that's where I live. We have 13 churches who provide the same facility that you talked about. Food, a place for them during the day. The sad part of it is they have to move from one church to another only for a week. That's got to be difficult for people. But these are churches that give up their a room in their church, or if there is a church who can't do the room, they provide the facility in another church. That was the Toms River Unitarians in Toms River. So the churches are doing their share. I think we can't deny that they're doing their share.
We are fortunate that the congregations, at least for our organization, have assisted us a great deal. They provide housing, they provide a place to stay, they provide community, they provide food, as you said. We rely great heavily on the parishioners of those congregations because they are our volunteers. They are the ones that stay with the guests overnight at the churches. They are the ones that cook and provide the meals without cost to us. They provide the funds to make those meals and things of that nature. And as Minister Steve said, a great deal of our donations come from those church organizations and so forth. So yes, while I do believe that there are issues within the religious population, our organization does rely heavily on these congregations, and we are greatly appreciative of everything they've done and given to us.
I just want to thank our panelists again. It was very informative and consciousness raising, and I think people have some, not only a better understanding of the issue, but a good notion of ways to help and get involved. And I really appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Red Bank Humanist Podcast. For more information, visit redbankhumanists.org or follow us on Twitter @RedBankHumanists.